Now, before we get started on the next part, I want to know if you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. Please subscribe if you like this video, hit like. Let me know anything else I can do for you, and let's get started on the next piece. The next part about this conversation is the volume and quality unit economics. And this is tremendously important. How does your business currently make money? Now, we talked about with Epic Fly Rods what the value of his emails are, right? We talked about with the furniture business. He knows he makes money when people come into the door. Now, ultimately, we have a unit value of a person that comes in the door. What it comes down to is you need to figure out a math equation that ultimately, with very high confidence, lets you know the unit value of the actions that people take before they come into your store. We also have to know that the conversion rate of these actions is not static. Almost everybody that I see talking about how to scale Facebook ads assumes a consistent conversion rate. Well, the honest truth is, when you amplify the volume of your investment into Facebook, when you spend more money, your ads are going to appeal to a slightly lower quality person because every ad is making its own lookalike audience. That's how content works in an optimized CPM platform. If you disagree with that, that's fine. You're dead wrong. There's empirical data going back a very long time to say that's actually how the platform functions. There's other videos we can dive on that. If you have more questions about that, please comment below and I'm glad to answer them. That being said, what we're getting to here is trying to understand what are the most static benchmarks in your customer journey. Where is the inflection point where you can afford to amplify that part of the journey? Because you are able to drive enough actions that you can use Facebook's machine learning to your benefit. Because that's the real point here. If you can't get out of the learning phase, then the campaign you're running doesn't actually have that much value. And that's a hard truth that you're going to have to accept. So if you have $500 a day to spend, realistically, that's $3,500 a week. You can probably afford to run things where your CPA or your CPL, your desired cost per action, is roughly around the $100 to $120 mark. Because you're driving between 25 and 40 actions a week, you're going to be able to leave the learning phase at a bare minimum. Now, if you can get actions for, say, $20, you might be able to spend $100 to $150 a day. So you have to understand, what is your available budget for the amplification of your business? Based on that budget, where throughout the customer journey are you ultimately able to find a place that you can afford to choose to amplify that aspect? And then from there, focus on working on the core competencies of your business to monetize that attention. And if you're hearing me, what I'm actually not saying is what conversion event in the funnel should you optimize towards, because that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about just making more add to carts. We're not talking about making more view contents. Because ultimately, if you're running a conversion objective, you should be optimizing towards the end goal. You need to be optimizing towards the end goal of that part of the funnel. And in high ticket spots where your item might be $200 or $10,000, the end goal for you might very well be, where do we pass it off from digital marketing to a real person? So maybe you have a sales team. Maybe you have customer service. Maybe you have email. Maybe you have salespeople. What we're getting at here is you start to get to the point of, how do we afford to use machine learning to drive a higher volume and higher quality person and volume of people and quality of people into that inflection point in our business? Where is a bottleneck in our customer journey that we can actually afford to amplify the volume of? Because we know once we get somebody to this point, we're going to be able to monetize them with a certain level of confidence. Where is the conversion rate fairly static? And not only is that conversion rate fairly static, but that event is something we can afford to do. That's where we really start to get down to how to use Facebook to run high ticket items. Now, several examples of this we've already gone over, but another one that we see often is if you are running a high ticket training program, for instance, and you know what I need is to fill my calendar with sales calls, because maybe I'm 1 out of 10 sales calls where somebody talks to me. You don't have a salesperson, it's just you. 1 out of 10 calls is a conversion. And that conversion is, say, 10 grand. Great. Now, right now, you're sitting at a spot where you get 10 calls a week. So you're making 1 new customer. 10 calls a week is roughly maybe 2 calls a day. If you want to double or triple your revenue, really it comes down to, how do we get 20 calls a week? Now, you can obviously also work on the sales pitch. You can work on other things, but this is the front end. What are we asking Facebook to do? Because the Facebook ads aren't going to help what happens after somebody talks to you. Now, they can help in priming that individual to be a higher quality. Absolutely. And that also goes down to the qualification and disqualification that happens throughout the funnel. But ultimately, what we're really getting to is the way you double your growth in business is doubling the amount of sales calls that you have. So how much does it cost to get somebody to have a sales call with you? Now, in my experience, I've done this with a $10,000 thing, and it cost me roughly about $50 to $70 to get somebody to book a sales call. And I did about, let's assume that was the blended net cost, baking in the no call, no show. So the actual people to show up to a call, get on a call with me, let's say it was $50. If I wanted to scale a $10,000 offer and I needed to double the amount of sales calls that I had, and I was currently having 10 and I wanted to get to 20, that meant that I had to spend roughly enough money to get an additional 10 sales calls a week. That's $500 a week. That's a reasonable expectation of a conversion for me. Now, for me to actually do that, that means that realistically, 10 events a week is not enough for me to really get out of the learning phase. So what I was able to do was say, instead of spending $500 a week, let me spend $1,000 or $2,000 a week so that I'm getting way more sales calls than I can actually handle. And what that does is it creates a bottleneck. So now I can do a quality assessment of those leads for the sales calls so that I can improve my conversion rate on those sales calls, because I'm disqualifying everybody that's not good for my business. Now, ultimately what this means is maybe I'm spending $2,000 a week, and as a result, I'm making an extra $10,000 a week because I'm getting 1 extra person to come through a $10,000 offer. Now, at scale, there's a point where this breaks down because of the amount of time that you have. Now, let's say you want to 5x that. You probably have to hire somebody else to do sales calls. Their conversion rate's probably going to be lower than yours. But once you find out the unit economics of the volume and the quality of every person that's coming into your store or coming into your funnel, now you're sitting at a spot where you can legitimately begin to plan your media. And at that point, we have to start focusing on amplifying the quality of the individuals, because volume creates an issue where you can't handle all of the opportunity, and you're going to get, your conversion rate's probably going to go down. So how do we then start to turn the Facebook machine into something that understands what is a good or a bad lead? And at that point, when we're doing lead gen, what I often do, and I suggest to everybody that's running lead gen inside the Facebook Ads MBA program, what I'll do with them is say, let's pass back offline conversion events. Of all of the ads that we've run, which ones actually turned into students or buyers or people that took that offer? When we pass that back, we're going to start noticing by concept, by ad, which ads are more likely to drive people that are more successful. We can retroactively get a cost per acquisition, even though we're not running Facebook ads to that acquisition event. Because we say, oh, we drove 4,000 leads, and out of that 4,000 leads, we got 50 customers. Great. Out of that situation, which that conversion rate may or may not be good for you, but we can understand, well, certain ads had a much lower cost per acquisition than others. We can start optimizing towards those ads that are better at driving a higher conversion rate customer into our sales funnel. Now our sales calls conversion rates goes way up, and we're making way more money, and we can even initially lower our investment at the growth of the business and still profit more. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about, especially when we're going on high ticket items. Again, if you have any questions around any of this stuff, please feel free to comment with any of them. Please feel free to ask. If you're liking this video so far, please smash the like button. Don't be afraid to subscribe. Go to links.facebookshopper.com if you want to know more things to help.